Alright, so today I want to show you the variability within the Desert Ghost ball python. It's pretty amazing if you actually go over to morphmarket.com and look at just the Desert Ghost without other genes in the mix. You'll actually see a really big difference between different ball pythons. And sometimes it's pretty amazing. You'll actually see two different Desert Ghosts and it's almost hard to believe it's actually the same gene. And then when you start mixing it with other combos, you'll get completely different visual results. And I'd say it really depends on what you're going for as far as the effect. But Desert Ghost in general, I say it's a really awesome morph. As a matter of fact, if I was to start over in ball pythons, I would probably consider going with the majority of Desert Ghosts in my collection. Makes for some really impressive combos. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to jump over the internet and I want to show you the variability within the Desert Ghost ball python. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here at morphmarket.com and I want to start with this really bright yellow Desert Ghost. And it's kind of interesting if you actually compare this to a lot of the other Desert Ghosts. You'll see this is kind of an unusual snake where it's actually really bright yellow. And the other interesting thing about the Desert Ghost in general is that the patterns are really reduced. Almost looks like it has Enchi in the mix. As a matter of fact, I actually bought two Desert Ghosts. One of them was a Pastel Desert Ghost male. And it was actually, I didn't think there was Enchi in it because if you actually looked at it, it looks pretty similar to this snake, but I actually bred that to a bunch of other snakes this last year and actually produced a Lemon Blast, which is a pastel pinstripe, and that thing definitely has Enchi in the mix. So sometimes you can actually have Enchi kind of hidden in your Desert Ghost and you don't even know it. Sometimes you can see it's there because it's really reduced, and sometimes it's kind of hiding in the background, as in my case when I actually bought that Pastel Desert Ghost. But this is actually one version of the Desert Ghost. If you actually take a look at this one, take a look at this. This is amazing. This is another Desert Ghost. It looks completely different than that last one. It almost looks like it has a xanthic or something in it. It's just really almost like it's almost like someone stripped out all the colors and made an axanthic. And it seems like there's completely different lines between almost like an axanthic looking Desert Ghost and a really bright yellow. And it's always kind of hard to figure out which one you have, especially if you're buying hets or if you're buying into combos. And as a matter of fact, I haven't actually produced any of just the standalone gene with my collection, and I'm kind of interested to see what just kind of the base gene looks like with the Desert Ghost in my particular two snakes that I bought. And here's another one. Take a look at this one. This is actually kind of an in-between where it's not really bright yellow and it's not like the Axanthic line. And I'm thinking maybe someone took those two snakes and bred them together. Maybe has one copy of the really bright yellow gene and one copy of more of an Axanthic type looking snake to get kind of this in between. Or maybe it's just a third line of Desert Ghost where you just have these differences in color in the base mutation. As a matter of fact, the first thing I was looking at when I started looking at these, I was thinking, all right, what if the Desert Ghosts change and they start really bright yellow as a hatchling and they turn into more of an Axanthic type looking snake when they get older? And it seems like some lines actually do kind of change a lot and some lines don't. So I actually pulled up the snake over here. This is another Desert Ghost with no other genes. Looks almost Axanthic, and if you actually look at the weight of this snake, this is only 135 grams. So this is a kind of one of the Axanthic looking Desert Ghosts, and it's you can definitely tell it's not, you know, starting bright yellow and turning into this Axanthic look from the age in this particular case. I just wanted to throw that in there so you don't think, you know, you start thinking, you know, a lot of these snakes can change drastically from when they're small to when they get older. Like the bananas and the coralglows, they can really go through a major transformation from when they're hatchlings to an adult. And it kind of seems in this case there's some transformation in certain lines, but it's not always the case. And in this case you actually see kind of this almost a black and white Desert Ghost as a hatchling. So I kind of wanted to start with the Pastel and add the Desert Ghost in from different lines so you can actually see the difference in appearance between, you know, mixing it in with some of these other genes. The Pastel is really popular. It's essentially what it does is it brings out a lot of the yellow in the snake, and a lot of times it actually reduces the pattern to a certain extent. And I would say when you mix Pastel in with Desert Ghost, you get one of the most impressive combinations. Take a look at this. This is the Pastel Desert Ghost. Now when I first saw these, I knew I had to buy into the project. And the problem is it's still a really expensive project. As a matter of fact, this one is $750. Really kind of a high-end project getting into Desert Ghost. And this one almost looks, it's kind of weird when you mix pastel in with Desert Ghost. It almost looks like a super pastel because you get a lot of these highlights coming down the top and you get a really white head. And that's just the influence of just one copy of the pastel with the Desert Ghost. And I've actually found when you actually have a pastel Desert Ghost, it actually keeps a lot of the brightness and a lot of the yellow as the snake matures. I actually have 2 Desert Ghosts with pastel in them, and they, as adults, they are still super bright yellow snakes. It's pretty amazing. And here is another version of the pastel Desert Ghost. Take a look at this one. This just blows me away from one extreme to another. And you see a lot of this, especially in there's just a few genes where you see it, like in Desert Ghost and in pastel. You'll actually see a lot of variability just in a pastel. Some of them are really bright yellow and some of them are browned out. It's almost even more extreme when it comes to the Desert Ghost. So here is the Bumblebee. I actually have a Desert Ghost Bumblebee. It's probably one of the most impressive Desert Ghost combinations that you can actually find. And this one is actually the spider and the pastel. And this is a really amazing snake. As a matter of fact, there's some lines of this that are a lot more brighter than others. There's some that are a little bit more cleaner. But this is essentially what a Bumblebee looks like. And if you actually mix Desert Ghost into the mix, take a look at this. This is a Bumblebee Desert Ghost. And this is like so bright and so clean. It is amazing. It's just the 3 genes, the recessive Desert Ghost gene and the pastel and the spider, makes for a really amazing combo. And the cool thing about this is it looks like this as it matures and it grows into an adult. It really keeps the nice sharp clean lines and the bright yellow color, which if you actually just had like a lot of pastels will actually fade with age unless you mix it in with Desert Ghost. A lot of times they'll say super bright as they get older. So here is another Bumblebee Desert Ghost. I pulled this up and it just kind of floored me that I couldn't believe the difference between that really super bright Bumblebee Desert Ghost and this snake right here. And it seems like this one was produced with the more, kind of the more Axanthic line of Desert Ghosts. You can definitely see it's not as bright yellow, but it's really super clean. Makes for a really impressive snake, just not as bright yellow. And it really depends on what you're actually shooting for as far as combinations. So I think if you're actually shooting for more of a dark morph, if you kind of go into the dark side with some genes like the GHI or the cinnamon or something like that, and you're actually making really super dark, clean snakes, a lot of times you might go with the Axanthic looking Desert Ghost instead of the really bright yellow one. So here is the Pinstripe. The Pinstripe works really well with Desert Ghost. The Pinstripe is a dominant gene. You breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as Pinstripe. Pinstripe is about as bright gold as you can get in a snake. It's really awesome. And here's what happens if you take Pinstripe and you mix it in with the Desert Ghost. Take a look at this. It makes it really super clean and defined. It kind of really brings out the contrast. And in this case, in this particular line of Desert Ghost, it actually brought out a lot of the yellow color. Really awesome. And here is the other version of the Pinstripe Desert Ghost. Take a look at this. It's almost like night and day. I was actually kind of sorting through all these snakes and it was really easy to actually find examples of both and put them side by side. And it's so amazing the differences in the different lines of Desert Ghost. So here is a Lemon Blast. Lemon Blast also works really well with the Desert Ghost because both the Pinstripe and the Pastel are really good genes to mix in. And the Lemon Blast is actually the Pinstripe and the Pastel. I've actually produced quite a few Pinstripes in my collection. And here's what happens when you mix Lemon Blast in with Desert Ghost. Take a look at this. This is a really impressive snake. It makes for really super clean, really cleans up the sides and really enhances the contrast and the definitions. Makes for a really amazing snake. And if you actually take a look at some of the prices on this, this actually sold for $1,200 plus another, you know, $50 to $75 for shipping. Probably one of the more higher end Lemon Blast combos that you can actually produce. Desert Ghost is really holding its price really well, and I think it's because it's a recessive mutation and the fact that a lot of people really don't know about Desert Ghost. There's not a lot of people really jumping on the bandwagon to really flood the market with all these desert ghosts, which, you know, essentially drives the price down a lot. So it's kind of like a niche project that is really awesome. I'd say it's probably right behind the clowns and the pieds, and a lot of people don't even know that the desert ghost is such an amazing gene. So here's another one. This is actually another Lemon Blast Desert Ghost, and you can see compared to the last one we looked at, this is a lot more kind of faded out, but you can see it still has quite a bit of yellow, and it really has a lot of contrast in the snake. And the cool thing I like about this one, it has these little flames, like white flames coming up the side, and I've actually seen that on my lesser clown. You see that in some clown combinations, a little bit of the flaming coming up the sides. Really awesome. So here is the GHI. The GHI is a dark morph. If you mix it in with other genes, essentially what it does is it darkens the background of the snake, makes for some really impressive combos. Here's what happens if you mix GHI in with the Desert Ghost. Take a look at this snake. And this is actually, I think this is actually the really bright yellow line of the Desert Ghost. You can see it's really popping out. It's super clean and bright on this combination. I was actually wondering what the price was on this one. This one is $2,000. Pretty amazing for a GHI Desert Ghost. And here's another version of the GHI Desert Ghost. And let me tell you, if you actually put these snakes side by side and told me they were the same exact genes in both snakes, I would just not believe it. It's pretty amazing from one version to the other. And I'm pretty sure this is just a different version of the Desert Ghost that's really changing the appearance, kind of really reducing all the yellows. This is pretty amazing. So I kind of want to show you one more snake here at the end, and take a look at this. You might know what this snake is. This is actually what we call the stormtrooper. And the stormtrooper is kind of a one-off, kind of a random anomaly that was actually produced by JD Constriction. And JD Constriction, essentially what they do is they work only with Axanthics. They base their whole collection around all Axanthics. I think it would kind of be neat to actually do exactly the same thing. Instead of Axanthics, work on Desert Ghost, which would be a really awesome project. And kind of the weird thing about this is when I went to my very first NARBC reptile show in Tinley Park, I was like, I think it was the first year I was in ball pythons. I was like, all right, I'm going to this show because the NARBC is like the Super Bowl of ball pythons. All the big breeders are there. And I actually was walking up and down the aisles, and I walked by this display that actually had the Star Wars characters and figurines, and they had this big sign called, it said the Stormtrooper. I was like, wait a minute, are these guys selling ball pythons or are they selling Star Trek memorabilia? I was a little bit confused. And then I walked up and I saw this snake, and I was completely blown away on the Stormtrooper. And a lot of people have actually kind of hypothesized is to try to figure out what genes are in the snake. And apparently the way the story goes is they were actually breeding two Axanthics together, and just kind of randomly out of the blue, they popped out this snake that was a really super high definition, super black and white, really high contrast Axanthic. And kind of the theory behind that goes that they think they might have Desert Ghost in their collection. So a lot of people have been kind of chasing the Stormtrooper, trying to work Desert Ghost into the TSK Axanthics to reproduce the Stormtrooper. And I've actually seen some people try and get close, but there's nothing exactly the same as the contrast and the brightness as the Stormtrooper. And I'm thinking maybe the people that have tried and almost succeeded, maybe they were using the wrong line of Desert Ghost. You can actually see really big differences between the yellow line and almost the Axanthic line. And you probably would want to start with the almost Axanthic line to start with, work that into the TSK line of Axanthic, and see if you can get the double recessive, the TSK Axanthic Desert Ghost. Maybe you could reproduce the Stormtrooper. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Sharissa B asks, what other website can I go to buy a snake other than Morphmarket? And that is a very good question. Believe it or not, before Morphmarket actually existed, the #1 website for snakes was actually kingsnake.com, and it still exists. As a matter of fact, over on kingsnake.com, you can actually get snakes that you can't get over on Morphmarket. They actually list venomous snakes. So, you know, it's kind of surprising. You can actually go over to kingsnake.com and buy a cobra. Some of those cobras are pretty awesome. I don't know don't know if I have the stomach to actually risk my life over a snake. I like to keep snakes at, you know, if I get bit, I'm not gonna die or risk, you know, any kind of adverse effects from the snake. Although if you're looking for a challenge, you can actually go over there and look at the venomous snakes. They also have quite a few ball pythons. It's organized a little bit different than Morphmarket, so I'd say you'd have to actually search by keywords instead of genes. But also over there, they also have like used equipment and used rack systems and a whole bunch of other stuff that you can't actually get over on Morphmarket. It's a pretty awesome site. You should go over to kingsnake.com and check it out. Another good place to go is your local Craigslist. I know a lot of people kind of frown on Craigslist, but you can actually pick up some really good deals if you shop around. I actually got a free snake over on Craigslist. One of my ball python females that I bred last year produced a bunch of eggs, and I actually bred Bobby to that female. She was actually a free snake that I got on Craigslist. Pretty awesome. I actually got my super dwarf purple albino reticulated python for about half price over on Craigslist. It was pretty awesome. Another thing you can actually do is you can actually go to Morphmarket and you can look at the map view and look at breeders in your areas. And a lot of times you can actually look at the breeders and see if they have websites, and you can go to the individual breeder websites for kind of more of a broader selection as far as what they have. And it's pretty much breeder by breeder, so that there's not really one large database for everyone that I really know of besides kingsnake.com and morphmarket.com. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.